our executive editor, National Security, Aditya Raj Kaul, as a explainer on these tunnels that we are calling the Gaza Metro. Let's watch that.
Gaza over the last 2 weeks has become the flashpoint of a deadly war between Israel and Hamas terror group after terror attacks in southern Israel on 7th of October. Over 3,000 people have been killed in Gaza in Israeli airstrikes, while over 1,300 have been killed in Israel due to the terror attacks. Hamas in Gaza over the years has built a massive network of underground tunnels, often used to carry out attacks in Israel and smuggle goods from Egypt. Yet, mostly it is used to let Hamas carry out its operations through underground command centers, which are also equipped to store and transport men and ammunition. Here, right behind me, you can get a glimpse of the map of these underground tunnels all across. In fact, in November 2022, I was a part of a delegation where the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli government had invited me to visit all the border areas. In fact, this was one of the areas near Sderot, around the southern Israel, where I had visited and in fact gone inside a tunnel that Hamas had really constructed along with concrete, electricity to in fact store ammunition and also send in terrorists into Israel for terror attacks. In 2021, Hamas had claimed to have built a tunnel network of over 500 kilometers, which is more than the size of the Delhi metro network. This massive network of tunnels used by the Hamas terrorists is known as the Gaza Metro. These tunnels are mostly built manually using basic tools, and yet there is electricity within these tunnels and the structure is solidified using concrete, as I said before. Tunnels have been an integral part of the warfare in the past as well. In the mountains of Afghanistan, both the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban have often used shelter within the tunnels. During the Vietnam War as well, the Viet Cong tunnels were used by the Vietnamese in the jungles of Southeast Asia. It was impossible for the US Army to enter these tunnels due to the sheer size of it. Hamas once again has been using these tunnels since the war with Israel has begun. You can see this is the tunnel which is being used continuously by the Hamas terrorists. It's a very narrow passageway which is very dark, but there is electricity at some ends. And on the other hand, you can see these rockets as well that have been kept to attack the Israeli Defense Forces. And IDF has also accused the Hamas of hiding inside these tunnels and often using civilians in Gaza as human shields. These tunnels are often difficult to navigate because of its maze-like structure and booby traps by the Hamas all along the passageway. Israel, however, is all set to now launch a massive ground assault inside Gaza to crush Hamas. Almost 4 lakh troops and reservists on ground have been mobilized for the same. The Israeli Defense Forces would also be using bunker busters or laser-guided bombs, also known as GBU-28, to demolish the underground tunnels or any targets hidden far below the surface. The bunker buster is a 19-feet-long explosive developed by the United States, which goes underneath the ground before exploding. It would, however, be a challenging ground assault because Hamas is currently holding nearly 200 Israeli and foreign hostages who could have been kept in these tunnels as well.
Aditya, those tunnels will never cease to fascinate me. I mean, they spent all this time preparing for this kind of a conflict by literally drilling underground. What are your sources telling you right now about the hostage situation in Gaza, Aditya?
As of now, we are being told that there are more than 200 hostages that have been kept for the last more than 10 days. Some of them unfortunately have died. Hamas has released a video of a particular hostage and said that there was a surgery that was performed on her because she had injuries in her arm. And there's a video that she asks her government, the Israeli government, to rescue her as soon as possible.
Yes, there is a video, but we are not going to be playing that. We don't want to be playing out Hamas propaganda. But that's very important because it suggests that they are going to drip feed these videos, Aditya, over the next couple of days to pressurize the Israeli government.
Absolutely. The propaganda has been underway. The Hamas has a huge propaganda network in the dark web and otherwise. We've seen from the West, from the Middle East also, a lot of support coming in for Hamas, unfortunately defending even the terror attack that happened in Israel on Saturday. What we need to also realize is that nobody knows the location of most of these hostages. The Israel government has said, we know location of some, but not all. So that's going to be a complicated operation once the ground assault really begins.
Right.
As we know, 22 foreigners as well as Israelis have already died. The US government has said that at least 14 of them, the 14 of the hostages are American citizens. Rishi Sunak yesterday came in and said that at least 10 to 14 of the British citizens are unaccounted for and believed to be hostages as well.
Right.
So the Israeli government has notified 200 families, but it could be more as of now because many people are still missing. And as I said, there's a maze of these tunnels inside Gaza, which is obviously called the Gaza Metro.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is unknown. So once the ground assault really begins and there is building to building movement, room interventions, etc., they're going to obviously use the bombs to explode these tunnels. But will these hostages become casualties in that process? Because it's going to be a very tricky road ahead. Because the IDF today has said and suggested that once the ground assault begins, it would be unlikely what the public expectation is. So one has to wonder what the IDF game plan really is.
Right. In fact, Seymour Hersh, the very famous US investigative journalist, came out with an article a few days back, where just 2 days back, in fact, where he's spoken about this Israel being caught between a rock and a hard place, with the hostage situation on the one hand, and the fact that they're not so sure of pushing in so many conscripts, so many new, fresh recruits, the weekend warriors into Gaza. And he says that is primarily the dilemma of facing the Netanyahu government. How do you see this? I mean, has any government in all of history faced the kind of dilemmas that Benjamin Netanyahu faces today?
Anybody who visits Israel, one thing strikes very clearly is that all of them are very military-like because they have served the military.
Right.
Even though the frontline soldiers are largely teenagers, you can call it a teenage army.
Yep.
But I suppose what they have been hearing from the parents, what they've been trained for in these academies, I have visited a couple of them where teenagers, young girls were being trained. I think largely they have understood how to use technology, and they have also understood what their middle or older generation has been up to. So once the new conscripts, the current, those who are serving in the barracks are available, and the reservists who join them in, and I think would be able to forge good mixed experienced units,
Right.
which will possibly go in, and how they decide to go in. They have special forces, and special forces are more regular troops.
Yep.
And I don't think so they're going to send lakhs and lakhs of army,
Right.
like normal conventional military attacks. No. I think what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that they get success inch by inch.
So it's going to be like intelligence-based operations and
Intelligence-based, focused operations.
Right.
So really speaking, if you gauge the mood of the Israeli army today, there is a certain definite calm, because they, I think, are completely focused.
Right.
They're getting regular intelligence and information. I think their older colleagues who were serving now elsewhere in various technology companies and high-tech firms have joined them in. Most of the industry is more military-like.
Right.
And I suppose huge amount of defense military complex is going to be very supportive in small R&D innovation mode.
Right.
And I think Israel is very good in innovation. So if they find that there is a new challenge, I think they would come out with innovate a new methodology.
Right.
And I suppose this is going to give a birth to the new Israel.
Right.
And I think they would largely redeem their lost image very quickly, because the ability to reinvent themselves.